This is the classic stereotype of Germany, a growing, specialised, sophisticated, efficient manufacturing hub of Europe and one of the key movers in Europe's quest for carbon neutrality. But this is growing increasingly less true. The European Commission predicted that Germany would be one of the slowest growing Eurozone economies this year, and with companies no longer being able to compete in an environment of rising prices and energy insecurity, Germany is once again opening their arms to the saving grace they swore to get rid of. With a huge wave of companies beginning to move their business overseas and Germany entering a trade deficit last May for the first time since 1991, the government has been forced to restart its mothballed coal power plants at record pace to try and tame this trend. And despite Germany shutting down its final black coal mine in 2018, publicly signalling an end to this fossil fuel, the nation is slowly becoming one of the largest users of coal in the world. According to the 2023 World Energy Report, Germany consumes more coal than the bottom 83% of European coal consumers put together, symbolizing that despite good intentions, the energy security of a nation comes first and foremost. So how did Germany get into this position? Why is coal making such a comeback? And what does this mean for the rest of Europe? This is the dark truth behind the revival of Germany's coal industry. These are the headquarters of BASF, the chemical manufacturing giant that has been the pride and joy of Germany's industry for over 150 years. A company founded on the banks of the Rhine and one that currently employs over 50,000 people in Germany. Well, BASF is currently in the process of spending $10 billion on a new state-of-the-art chemical manufacturing facility, one that will cement the company's position as one of the chemical behemoths of the world. Except this facility isn't being built in Germany, but over 5,000 miles away in Zhanjiang, China. This is part of a growing trend where the lack of adequate labour, growing bureaucracy, and most of all expensive energy are driving business out of the country. But to understand why this decline is such a big deal, we have to understand how Germany became the industrial hub of Europe in the first place. Germany's Industrial Revolution came a little later than that of the UK, occurring in the mid-19th century. But the nation quickly made up for this by developing booming steel, railroad and coal industries. By the late 20th century, Germany had become one of the largest economies in the world, homing automotive, electronics and chemical giants that were the envy of the globe. But the success of Germany's industry has relied on an important factor: a backbone of any industry and something that companies can't competitively produce without. This is cheap energy. Germany initially took advantage of its huge domestic coal reserves, which primarily powered the country for the majority of the 20th century. But the nation slowly began to diversify its sources of energy, developing gas pipelines from Russia in the 60s and 70s to building an array of nuclear power stations in the 70s and 80s. A snapshot of Germany's power grid generation in 2019 would have looked something like this, with gas prices staying around the levels of 15 euros per megawatt hour. But this situation has undergone massive changes. Germany no longer directly imports gas from Russia, opting for more expensive LNG, whilst the government decided to phase out all nuclear power, closing down its final plant earlier this year. A series of policies that have seemingly tipped the balance of Germany's scales too far. Energy prices in Germany remain far higher than they were just a few years ago, despite coming down from their recent highs. And whilst this is a problem Europe as a whole is facing, Germany's electricity costs are much higher than the European average. But despite the country investing billions of dollars into renewable infrastructure like wind and solar, increasing their market share dramatically over the past decade, a gap in the market still exists. A gap that's only short-term solution seems to be coal. So far, Germany has reactivated 8 gigawatts of coal plant capacity and is bringing back several more coal-fired units this winter to avoid electricity shortfalls and save natural gas for heating systems that can't be substituted. A situation that could see coal account for over 40% of electricity production in the country this winter. A stark difference to just a few years ago, and an exemplification of the country's poor energy policies as of late. And whilst the government claim that these measures are only temporary, reiterating that their goal is to achieve 80% of the country's electricity production from renewables by 2030, reality states that the country will be relying on coal for far longer than they care to admit. The group of German gas storage operators INES stated that without huge investment into LNG terminals and additional gas storage capacity, Germany will still be at risk of gas shortages all the way up till 2027. And whilst gas prices remain high, Germany will likely continue using comparatively cheaper coal in an attempt to drive electricity prices down to make the nation more competitive for industry. On the production side of things, whilst the country shut down its final black coal mine in 2018, brown coal or lignite mines are still operational in several of the country's mining districts and play an important role for supplying nearby power plants. So whilst Germany lectures the rest of the world about reducing their dependence on coal, the country itself still has a lot of work to do if they want to reduce this reliance for themselves. But for now, if Germany still want to maintain their spot as the competitive manufacturing centre of Europe, their dependence on coal is likely to be maintained for the near future. Germany isn't the only country facing a power crunch at the moment, with North Korea suffering from energy shortages nearly every winter. So click here for another fascinating case study on energy and our world.